Squile, Iowa, Quanisi Lamdama. It's really good to see everybody this morning. We're just going to move right into the agenda here. So first and foremost, I'd like to recognize the traditional territories of the Comox and Penlatch peoples. And can we get a motion to move to item C, the resolution status report?
We'll move.
Thank you. All in favor? James?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if the directors have any questions about any of the items on the resolution status report, certainly we can try to answer those questions. Otherwise, Mr. Chair, we're here.
Any comments, questions? Great. So can I get a vote on receipt of report? All carried. All in favor? Carried. Thanks.
Move number 1 and all 4 advisory committee.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Vote on receipt, the minutes. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Move to D2, the Electoral Area C rezoning for 7200 Forbidden Plateau Road.
Report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to introduce Jody McLean, our senior planner, who will be introducing the staff report. With Jody at the table is Don True, our manager of planning services. So I think, Jody, it's over to you.
Thank you, CEO, to the directors. So this is zoning amendment application concerns a 20-hectare lot about halfway up Forbidden Plateau Road. The proposal has been in front of this committee a couple of times over the last couple of years. The owner, they were seeking a rezoning to enable a subdivision of this property into 4 lots, and staff had recommended against further increasing the residential density in this area. The board gave direction to proceed with the rezoning amendment that would enable a subdivision into 2 10-hectare lots with a residential density limited to 1 dwelling for each lot. Since the existing zoning allows for 2 dwellings per lot, and this arrangement of 1 dwelling on each of the 2 potential lots maintains the same residential density, it just allows each house to exist on their own separate land title. So this report analyzes the feedback on this proposal that we received from external agencies. Of note, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure said that there is no intention at this time to pave this portion of Forbidden Plateau Road. The City of Courtenay cautioned against directing new growth to areas outside the core settlement areas and outside of areas where the fire departments can respond in areas with such limited emergency access. And the Area C Advisory Planning Commission recommended proceeding with the 2 lots with 1 dwelling each arrangement. So Appendix B in your package there contains a draft bylaw that's suitable for a given first and second reading. Also connected to this, the applicants had offered a community amenity contributions consisting of the use of some land for fire prevention and fire control, consistent with the community-led approach described in the Forbidden Plateau Fire Protection Feasibility Study. The purpose of that approach is that it be organized and managed by the volunteers without conditions or criteria that government involvement would entail. So therefore, Mr. Chair, staff is recommending that we proceed with first and second readings as presented, and the owners work directly with the Plateau Road Residents Association on a voluntary basis. If first and second reading is provided here, the next step would be the public hearing. The owners, Barry and Sonia Notition, are on Zoom there, and they can provide some more details if you wish.
Thanks, Barry. Did you want to add any further comments?
No, thank you. We're just ready here, standing by to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks. I'll open it up. Director B?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you to staff for doing all the work on this. I know it's been a long haul. I think we've reached a good compromise here in the fact that there is no increase in density because, as you know, all lots pretty much in the electoral areas are zoned for 2 buildings. And at a certain point, they're zoned for 2 full-size buildings. Otherwise, the one has to be less than 960 square feet. And I'm old school. I'm going feet, not meters. Yeah, it's great that they captured the concerns of the Area C Advisory Planning Commission, because there was an option there to work with the Plateau Road Association, which is a residents association in Area C, to work on some plan for wildfire and house fires up there, because of course it isn't really covered under the Courtney fire protection area. But we do have a lot of people in that area that work in the forestry industry, and a lot of them have their wildfire fighting certificates already. So a building that could house pumps and maybe a cistern full of water would be very helpful. So I'm glad to see that. Courtney, of course, doesn't surprise me at all. They want everybody to buy $800,000 1-bedroom apartments in town. In fact, regional growth strategy was basically hijacked back in the day by the city to look after city's interests. And when they talk about 10 hectares, that's a lot of land. So I don't think it's going to be, they're going to be crowded up there. And there is the issue around wildfires, and there's 2 schools of thought on that. One being that the more eyes and ears on the ground, the better. And I think that was lost in one of the preliminary reports. So I'm very happy to see this moving forward, and I will be definitely voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Dave. Director Arbor?
Thanks, Chair. I'll be in favor as well, and it's nice to see a resolution around this file. And I want to thank the owners for working with us and persevering, and also for the community amenity contribution in regards to the land that Dr. Grieve questioned. It's nice to see something like that. We recently had a very large development and rezoning happen where there was next to no amenity contribution, or almost as significant as the one that we're seeing here on this 2-lot property. So really happy to see that. And I don't know about the hijacking of the regional growth strategy. I think that's a little bit out of scope, and I'm not sure that the municipalities did that, but that can be for another topic. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much. So we're on vote of receipt of report. All in favor? Carried.
Move the application.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Thanks very much, staff. That particular file. We have item number 3, Electoral Area C Agricultural Land Reserves Subdivision Inclusion. Thank you.
And again, this report will be introduced by Jody McLean, Senior Planner. So Jody.
Thank you. And Lisa will bring up the subdivision plan that's proposed here on the big screen. It's on page 19 of your agenda package. So what we have here is the owner of 2 adjoining lots on Sturgis Road. He's seeking to subdivide and develop the lands the lands with some strata lots that are suitable for houses adjacent to an existing airstrip. And that airstrip would be commonly owned by all the strata owners. So as you can see, the green on that, the eastern portions of the land are within the Agricultural Land Reserve. And the proposed strata subdivision would be involving using about 0.2 hectares of that ALR land in the southeastern corner as part of a strata road, which is making this ALR subdivision application necessary. And related to that, the owner at the same time is seeking to include but 11 hectares of adjacent land into the agricultural land reserve. That'd be that blue area there. That non-ALR portion is currently zoned as rural 20, which allows for the creation of 20 hectare lots. And similarly, the rural ALR portion puts a minimum lot size of 8 hectares on new lots. So generally, instead of subdividing evenly to those minimum lot sizes across the property, the provincial bare land strata regulations allow for lot size averaging to create the same number of lots, but using a smaller lot size on a single strata. This is allowing the owner to create 2 hectare lots clustered together while preserving that large remainder, which will be suitable for forestry and agricultural activities. So, Mr. Chair, the Agricultural Advisory Planning Commission reviewed this proposal, and they found that the lands to be suitable for agricultural use and recommended their inclusion into the ALR. Similarly, the 0.2 hectare area that is subject to the subdivision application is suitably used as a road to access those agricultural lands. So the recommendation in this report is to forward the applications to the Agricultural Land Commission. And the applicant, Mr. Lee Pond, is in the gallery today, and he can provide some context into the background and vision for this proposal. Thank you.
Would you like to come up to the podium and provide some further comments?
We're on. So I think Jody did a great job here summarizing it. I just had a couple more points, and I handed a piece of paper out this morning. I'm a forester. I grow trees for a living. I don't want to lose my tree growing area, but the area I picked for this is a shale ridge. It's got very thin soils on it. And as anybody who farms or grows trees for a living, you're land rich and cash poor. So I'm trying to get a little something going here without damaging my tree growing area. So I think this is going to be really good for the neighborhood. We don't have access now for farm equipment, for fire trucks, for large commercial vehicles out there. Part of the proposal with this is to upgrade the road so all the neighbors can get access there. I'm maintaining the agricultural. I think I'm making it better. We're putting 2 lots together, which were not very possible to manage. They were awkward to manage. There's 2 separate lots, so there'll be a better package now. So I think it's a good thing for the public. I think it's a good thing for agriculture. So that was my pitch there. Any questions?
Director Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through CAO. I guess I'll ask this to staff. Where are we in relationship to that famous non-bridge over the Black Creek? This has been, for anybody who isn't aware, this has been going on for quite some time because it's not an official MOTI bridge. So I'm just wondering, so that's it there. Okay, so what are the plans for that bridge then if this proposal goes ahead? Have you been working with MOTI on this and the fire department?
Yeah, I've talked to the fire department. I've talked to MOT. We're working with an engineering firm out of Campbell River to propose an alternate way to get in there. So there's 2 choices, through Spike Road or up through the existing bridge. So north or southbound on Sturgis Road. So we'll be, when the engineer gets his package together, we'll be sending a proposal to highways. So yeah, we are working together on it.
So this is finally a solution to the conundrum?
Yes, finally.
Thank you very much.
The neighbors are very excited. We're putting a package together to finally get fire truck access and
this has been going on for 20
vehicles.
years.
Oh, I know, it's brutal. Brutal.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Jody, can you speak to the staff report does speak to this, the fire protection service in particular and road access. So Jody, I'm just wondering if Jody, you can speak to that part of the staff report.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, as you mentioned here, so currently this portion of Sturgis Road needs to get used that bridge just to the north, and the fire truck just can't get over that. The weight limits are not there. So it's a Ministry of Transportation road, so the regional district doesn't get involved with that road upgrading and all that. There's two lots here, that triangle shaped lot and then the large remainder. The triangle shaped lot is inside the Black Creek Oyster Bay Fire Protection Service area. The large one is not, is outside the fire protection area. So if they want, that's where those proposed lots are located. So if they want to include those into the fire protection area, they'll have to make an application to expand the fire protection local service area. And that would involve review by the fire department and see if they can, if they could service that area.
Any other questions? Director Harper?
Yeah, thanks. And it's for first brush, it's nice to see the letter from the land use planner at the Ministry of Agriculture, because when I first read the report, I just read a report 2 weeks ago around our agricultural plan that talks about keeping larger parcels intact and together and avoiding subdivision in ALR. So when I read that, I was like, well, this proposal doesn't look very good, but it's interesting to see the note from the ministry on this. So I'm fine with sending it for referral for now and moving it down the road. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? We're still on receipt. Do we want to, all in favor of receipt of the report? Carrie, thank you. Thank you. So we'll vote on recommendation. All in favor? Carrie. All right, moving to item 4, Electoral Area C Agricultural Land Reserve Non-Farm Use Placement Fill on 6721 Farnham Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Stephanie Pollock, our planner, will be introducing the staff report and will be available for any questions. So Stephanie, over to you.
Thank you. An application has been received to consider a non-farm use for the placement of fill within the agricultural land reserve. The applicant submitted a non-farm use application for fill that was placed on the subject property without prior approval from the ALC. This application is made retroactively and was instigated by the ALC's issuance of a notice of contravention. A professional agrologist report was submitted in support of the application. At the time of the ALC's site visit, the purpose of the fill was identified to be for constructing an access point for 10 RV sites and a washroom laundry facility for agritourism accommodation purposes. The purpose of the fill has since changed to be used primarily as a farm access road off of Wynn Road to the intended horse stalls and apple orchard building. The fill is also intended to be used as a floor for the horse stalls. According to the applicants, the campground-related activities have ceased and will not restart. This use is confirmed by the professional agrologist report. The applicants now seek ALC approval to legalize the current state. The property has attained farm status from BC Assessment, and according to the agrologist's report, the property owners have identified their primary agricultural activity on the property as orchard development. A volume of approximately 130 to 155 cubic meters of fill was deposited on the property, covering an area of approximately 520 square meters. In regard to the impact of the fill on agricultural conditions, the professional report concludes that although the fill does not directly improve agricultural capability on the property, It is the professional opinion of Madrone that the fill does not degrade the overall agricultural capability of the property. This ALR non-farm use application is an option to bring the placement of the fill into compliance with CVRD and provincial requirements. Other options include the remediation of land or removal of unauthorized fill. The Agricultural Advisory Planning Commission considered the application at its meeting on September 14th, 2023, with the applicants in attendance. The Agricultural APC recommends the application be forwarded to the ALC with the recommendation that the fill be investigated for the presence of construction waste material due to multiple neighbors claiming to have observed construction waste in the fill while being deposited on the property. It should be noted that the professional agrologist report states the following in reference to the quality of the fill. Quote, because the fill was purchased from a registered business, there is no reason to suspect that the fill may contain any materials unsuitable for farm access road construction. For example, construction, commercial, or industrial debris, or contain any substances that may be in exceedance of BC Contaminated Sites Regulation. Further, Madrone did not observe any materials in the fill that would be considered unsuitable for farm access road construction or horse stall floor construction, unquote. I do not believe that the owners and applicants are in attendance today. However, staff is now available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Director Green?
Thank you once again, Mr. Chair. Okay, this is going on for almost 2 years. It first came to my attention when the neighbors, and I think there's 18 residents that signed that letter, got a hold of me and were quite concerned about all the activity with heavy equipment on a very, very small portion of Wynn Road where it's more like a trail than a and in talking to the homeowner, they were informed that they were going to build a how many 10 campsite there. So as you probably know by reading the report, in the end of the day, they contravened the ALC with the truckloads of fill, witnessed that there's concrete, metal, and masonry in it, regardless of who they hired to say there wasn't. No permit for the accessory building, the septic field. So they got a stop work order from the ALC, MOTI, Ministry of Environment, and the CVRD. And then if you read the remarks from the ministry, they were concerned that all of a sudden the business model shifted from agritourism to apple production. And they thought that was interesting. The proposed horse stalls appear to be a developed campsite. And they wanted the CVRD to actually confirm they're starting to plant apple trees. So I would think that the credibility of this development is stretched to the point of breaking. And I will not be in favor of forwarding it to the ALC. Thank you.
Director Harper?
Yeah, thanks. I do. In the staff presentation, it says that the agrologist, the rationale for not being concerned about the fill was that it came from a registered business. That's a very low bar, in my opinion. So to staff, has the agrologist been on site and looked at the fill and dug around and the rest of it, or they just did a paper review of this?
Thank you through the CEO to the chair to Director Arbor. Yeah, the report that we received from the professional provided us with some clarity of their investigation. Staff used the reliance model to ensure that, you know, their information that the information that was given to us, staff will use to present to the directors and to the AOC. Staff did go on site and did a walk through the site, and we did see there some activities regards to some land clearing regards for their horse stalls or the structure was partially built. But with us being on site, you know, I can say that we didn't see any construction debris, but we weren't out there with shovels or machine investigating the soil.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful to know that you've been on site. I mean, the only thing I have in my mind when this issue came up is what's happening in Lendell in Chilliwack there, where a lot of fill was brought in, and it's creating a lot of concern. I mean, massive volumes, and again, with construction waste and the rest of it mixed up. So if people haven't dug up to investigate, and we have reports from community members saying that they observed that, I can see somebody scraping the top of the piles of materials and whatnot. I don't know. As the agrologist or anybody looked at putting a condition that all the materials be screened at the cost of the operator?
Through the chair to Director Arbor, yeah, we weren't part of that conversation. The professional did go on site and wrote a report on that in regards to what type of materials and if there's any debris in it. We did try to reach out to Madrona, their agrologist there, and try to ask that question to them, but we did not receive any comments back from Madrona.
Thanks. And just to confirm lastly that the owner is not in attendance today? Or anybody, any agent or any representative?
Through the chair to Director Arbor, yeah, we can confirm that looking at the gallery and on through Zoom, they are not here today.
Okay, so I mean, when you've had, through the chair, when you've had an issue like this that's been such a flashpoint for the community, I would expect somebody to show up at a meeting like that so that they can answer some questions for the committee. On that basis, I will side with Dr. Grieve and simply deny the request. Thanks.
Through the chair to Director Arbor and to the directors, I can confirm that staff did reach out to the applicants to inform them and also put on to the link to this meeting.
Can I just ask a point of clarity to either Ton or Stephanie? I note in the options section, the option to refuse to forward the application is certainly available to the EASC to consider. Can you explain then what does happen with this file if the committee refuses to forward the application?
Thanks, Jane. So if the committee and the board decide not to forward this application to the LC, then it would be an enforcement action with the applicant, and we will be discussing this options with the owner to see how we can resolve this.
Any other questions, comments? So we're still on receipt of the report. All in favor of the report? Carried. And we have a recommendation. Director Green?
I'd like to move the recommendation that the Electoral Area Services Committee write a letter to the ALC confirming that we will not support. Thank you.
So is that a motion then? You putting forward that motion? It's been seconded by Director Arbor. All in favor? Carried. Thanks. We try and refrain from any hand clapping or booing or anything like that if we can. Thanks very much. All right, moving into item number 5, the Electoral A application for site-specific floodplain setback 7616 Tozer Road. Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, Stephanie Pollock will be introducing this report and answering questions. Stephanie?
Thank you. The 0.38 hectare subject property is oceanfront, backing onto Fanny Bay and located at 7616 Tozer Road in Area A. The property currently has existing accessory buildings and a septic field. A single detached dwelling and carriage house is being proposed within 100 meters of the present natural boundary of the sea and within the coastal floodplain as mapped in the CVRD's Coastal Flood Adaptation Strategy. According to the floodplain management bylaw, construction of habitable area within this area must adhere to a flood construction level and floodplain setback to the year 2100 as prescribed by an engineer. The engineer prescribes a minimum flood construction level of 5 meters. The proposed buildings will adhere to this requirement by ensuring that the habitable space is above this minimum vertical distance. For the floodplain setback, the engineer calculates that it will be beyond the extent of the subject property, leaving no building envelope. To accommodate the development on this lot, a floodplain application is needed. The engineer deems the dwellings safe for the use intended with the implementation of risk reduction strategies. The strategies are listed in the staff report. Staff recommends the board require the engineer's report to be registered as a covenant against the land title of the subject property and that a clause indemnifying the CVRD from liability be included. The property owner, Jerry Friesen, and applicant Bill Lane are in attendance today and available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Director Trevor?
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, we've now it's become a habit now of doing those for waterfront development, following our work on coastal flood mapping. And I guess currently it's checking the box in terms of us waiving sort of liability around some of the impacts and then passing it back to the homeowner. I think in future years, we may, as we look to redo our OCP and land use bylaws and otherwise and development permit, I think this committee has talked in the past that there'll probably be a need for a larger conversation around building in the floodplains in the long term. But we're not there yet. I think we'll want to be thorough in those conversations once we have them. I am concerned. So for the applicant, for the homeowner, it's definitely a risk that they're taking on. And what we haven't seen yet, as far as I know, in the marketplace, is insurance issues around that. We're seeing with wildfires in BC, a lot of areas people are starting to have trouble securing insurance. I could imagine that next number of decades we might see the same in coastal flood plain areas. So with that cheerful note, I think for now, I think I'm fine with continuing until we've done that work of really looking at the broader impact and long-term impact of building the coastal floodplain. But I think that our approach that we've taken the last few years to at least warn and also push back some of the liability on the homeowners is the right approach for now until we make some bigger considerations down the road. Thanks, Chair.
Like to give the opportunity to Mr. Friesen, if he'd like to come up to the podium, if he wants to provide any comments or answer any other questions that might come up. Okay, thanks. Director Brief, any other comments, concerns?
No.
All right, we're on vote of receipt in regards to the property on 7616. So all in favor of receipt? Carried. And there's a recommendation as well. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Moving to item number 6, 2023 additional rural community grant considerations. There's a report. All in favor? Thank you. Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Doug DeMarzo, General Manager of Community Services, will introduce this report and facilitate part of that discussion around the grant opportunities. So Doug.
Good morning, and through the chair, we're back looking at our rural community grant applications. We anticipate this will be the last intake for 2023, and we'll encourage any other applications to go to 2024 in the March process that we have set up on our website. As such, we have 4 new applications, 2 of which have been before you before, which is the Black Creek Bread of Life for $16,000 and the Oyster River Enhancement Society for their work along the Oyster River is for $16,000. 2 you haven't seen include the Hornby Island Education Society. This is a unique museum / nature center that's been on Hornby Island for a number of years and recently moved to a new location outside of the school, but on the school property. Have done significant work in the community to upgrade the natural component of education on Hornby Island. They're also in a unique position because they're not really museums, so they do have difficulty accessing museum grants and other type of grants that are often available to them, being that they're a natural history center. There's further information about their activities in the staff report. Of significance here is the Brazilian Cultural Foundation is looking at a one-time event in the Comox Valley, and I've been here to ask for $80,000. And as such, we brought Alicia in, who is going to represent the Brazilian Cultural Foundation with a brief presentation to give you a better understanding of what that grant ask is. And then we'll move back to myself to work through the process of potentially allocating these grants from the 5 grant and aid services in front of you with your uncommitted funds remaining from each of those services. So I'll just invite Alicia up and she'll take the podium there.
So great button there on the base of the speaker there, or phone. There you go.
I just wanted to ask Lisa if she did receive my PowerPoint. No? Oh, no.
Send it again.
Okay, let's try it one more time here. Okay. Yeah, let's start with a video, just to introduce you to what we do here in the Valley. It's on YouTube. I think Lisa has that one ready to go.
La 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 we la we la la we la we la la we la wa. Verdade, doa em quem doer. A capoeira, ela é minha alegria. O som que me contagia é pra ela que eu quero viver. Lá, lá, uê, lá, uá. A capoeira nasceu de uma dança através do sofrimento. Luta se transformou. Lá, lá, uê, lá, uá.
No, okay, it's saying that the attachment is too large. So I will try sending it, can I send it to you in a PDF format? Okay. So sorry. We could play the next video, or maybe you didn't get that one either. Okay, download. That in PDF.
Director Arbor, you got a comment?
Looks like they're close, but if this was gonna take a couple of minutes, I thought we could dispense with the other items, the other
Yeah.
grant and aid requests. Then
Okay.
that releases a bit of pressure there.
Good
Okay,
idea.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, so we'll continue to try to do this. PDF is okay though.
So we'll move into item number 7 then, or?
No, we're already in it.
Sorry. Oh. Okay, Doug, you want to introduce the other grant applications? Thanks.
Yeah, so the remaining grant applications is the Black Creek Bread for Life food share for 16,000. It's basically a food bank that looks at the hamper baskets and other type food support for the community, largely in the Black Creek area, Merville Creek area, but does expand across the Comox Valley. And the Oyster River Enhancement Society. These funds continue maintenance and improvements to trails and roads, but also educate our community and schools with restoring fish habitat and promoting the Oyster River watershed. Of course, they continue to do their hatchery operations as well down there. And I spoke a little bit about the Hornby Island Educational Society through the Natural History Center earlier on, with some research programs that going on, nature walks, and continued support for their building and facilitators at their building. So as such, the Hornby Island, well, I guess they're up for your consideration to move forth with the PDF, but just as a reminder, your remaining funds in part of electoral area A is 20,782. Area B is 17,839. Area C is 57,119. Area A is 6,164, being Denman Island, and Area A being Hornby Island, 12,061. For a total of 113,965 remaining. And this will be the last time, unless otherwise directed by directors, that will bring these grants in front of you this year.
Carries forward.
Yeah, it'll be in your next year's budget, and then the next application or review is usually around May that we again the March deadline, and then we bring it forward as a larger package.
Director Arbor, you had some comments, questions?
Yeah, thanks. The main one I'm looking at is the Hornby Island Educational Society and the Natural History Center. And for the background to Doug, that organization has been around for a long time. They used to have the displays and the exhibits in the school. And when the school burned down, that room actually somewhat survived, but had extensive smoke damage. So they had to put all of their collection, which is a pretty big collection. Like if you take 2/3 of this room, just imagine it filled with specimens and all this stuff. And then they worked with experts and they spent hundreds of hours just de-smoking and cleaning all the specimens and just going through it for 2 or 3 years. And now they have a new space in what had been the mobile. Before we rebuilt the school, we were in a mobile school, and they've taken over one of that spaces, which is right in the heart of Hornby. So they ended up with a really good location. Long story short, this is just not background for directors, but long story short, they are doing great programs. They are underfunded. And so I'd be happy to support their request for this year coming out of the Hornby Island for 5,000. Thanks.
Director Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, the Oyster River Enhancement Society, I think needs no further introduction or comments. They do great work up there. They have some of the best, most dedicated volunteers of anybody in Area C. They're obviously, like everything else, costs are going up. And normally, I think for the last 10 years, they've gotten $10,000. So I think it's time for a bump. And I'd be willing to take that out of my fund. As for the Bread of Life Black Creek Food Bank, they recently have set up shop on Highway 19A, directly opposite Williams Beach Road. It used to be Surplus Army and Navy or whatever. If you're really old like me, you'll remember that used to be the original edible island. And so many people even know that. But yeah, they're kind of serving the northern part of Area C that's not being served by the Comox Valley Food Bank. In fact, I don't. In talking to the Comox Valley Food Bank, they were only remotely aware of the existence, but they do serve a lot of people. They've got a legal kitchen. They must have about 10 new big refrigerators in there and freezers, and they still get quite a lot of donations apart from the stuff that goes to the Comox Valley, like the farmers market. All their excess food goes to the Comox Valley Food Bank. So, but they do quite well in picking up this and that, including pet food during COVID and everything. So it's in high demand. So once again, I think I'd be willing to give them, especially in light of the fact that we're facing very, very difficult times, even in the electoral areas, even the rural areas. People don't see the poverty is kind of hidden in rural areas because people are living in tool sheds and chicken coops and what have you. So I think that I will definitely support them on this, and I will also give them 16,000 from my electoral area A rural community grant service. Thank you. I say area A. That is a Freudian, I think. Area C.
Thanks. We'll invite Alicia back up to the podium. We'll give you, let's say, another 7 minutes there, Alicia, to finish your presentation. Thanks for your patience.
Hi, thank you so much. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties is not my area of expertise. Okay, so my name is Alicia Fennell, otherwise known as Instructora Onsa from the Asha Capoeira Academy, downtown Courtenay. And I'm here representing my academy, but also the Brazilian Cultural Foundation. The video you saw earlier is our event in 2019. Perfect, thank you. 2019, we've held several international events here in the Valley that have brought people from all over the world, as far as Macau, Brazil, Mexico. And basically, I'm here to advocate for culture as a catalyst for change and healing. I'll just first tell you a little bit about ourselves. This is going to be our 15-year anniversary in the Valley. Teaching capoeira. So capoeira is a Brazilian martial art, but it's also a culture. It involves dance, music, and martial arts. And it was evolved from the transatlantic slaves that were brought to Brazil, who were fighting and resisting oppression. And they actually successfully did this in the form of quilombos, which were escaped slave settlements that they would form in the jungles, and those settlements sometimes lasted hundreds of years, and they defended themselves through slavery, through capoeira. Capoeira involves a lot of ancestral knowledge and intergenerational knowledge passed down through ancestors. It also involves oral tradition of song and teaching through song. Asha Capoeira's origins are from our master, Mestre Barão, who was born in Recife, Brazil. And he was born in the 60s, and he came to Vancouver to do a show for the Children's Festival and loved Canada so much, he decided to come back as a cultural worker. Back then, you could actually move to Canada as a cultural worker and get a work visa. It's a lot harder to do that now. It's almost impossible. So we're really fortunate to have him develop an academy and an international student base out of Vancouver with Canada's help. We've recently also developed the Brazilian Cultural Foundation on the island here, which supports culture, the teaching and sharing of Brazilian culture all over British Columbia. We have international guest teachers that we bring from all over the world for these events. So basically we are supporting these cultural workers from all over, and a lot of them coming from countries that are lower income or very almost impossible to get out of the poverty situation that they're in. Next slide. So our events, we hold at least one event a year. Of course, during COVID, it was hard to hold any events at all. So we're just kind of starting to get back on our feet. And what we've noticed now is that costs are a lot higher. In the Valley in particular, the venues are a lot harder to come by. It's almost impossible to get a venue. Sid Williams Theatre is sold out. We usually would have made a lot of our income to support our guests through ticket sales, which we did sell out in 2015 at Sid Williams. So that has become a little bit of a struggle in the Valley. But we're really excited to announce that we are going to go ahead with our 15-year anniversary celebration this year. The Asha Capoeira in the Valley here, we started back in 2009 when myself and my family moved to the Valley. We started teaching in the rec centers, and then eventually we obtained our own studio, which has been in operation for 14 years now. Our own studio has been in operation for 10 years. We're right down on 5th Street. So we're very central. We've taught thousands of students over the years. We've done performances, school workshops. We've done international events, as you've already heard. Let's go to the next slide. So here's just some photographs of some of our students and some of the events we've run. One thing that we would like to do, I'd like to also, sorry, I meant to do this at the beginning. I'd like to thank Melinda Knox, who's been helping us fundraise, and she's not able to be here today because she's unwell. So I told her to please just take a step back and take care of her health. She and I are working together, and we are wanting to do a cultural exchange. So, that slide's not here for some reason. That's okay. Oh, here we go. So the cultural exchange element of the event this year, whereby we have contacted the Komugwe Cultural Society, the local Comox Nation Dance Society with Andy Everson, Rick Everson, and we are proposing to do a cultural evening with them, as well as other internationally renowned traditional drummers and dancers who live in British Columbia. So that would be an element of our event, and we're hoping to do that at the Big House, but Melinda is still working on that element of the event. As you know, it takes a lot of organization. Some of the proposed invitees. So here is Mestre Bahão, from Recife, Brazil. He was my master who moved here, lived in Canada for almost 30 years. Now he's back in Brazil he's got his own academy open, and he is now teaching underprivileged children martial arts in Brazil with the hopes of one day having them travel the world with their art. Mestrando Testa, Kevin Brett, he's actually from Merville, and he runs the academy in Victoria. Aurinha de Jesus is our Afro-Brazilian dance teacher who lives in Vancouver and is also from Brazil. Mestre Eddie Murphy, he's one of our masters who is from Sao Paulo, who living in Macau. He's been to all of our international events, and we're hoping to invite him back. And then there's myself performing. And the other invitees that we would like to invite in attendance this year for our intercultural element would be the Komugwe Cultural Society, Ali Traore. He's living in Victoria, but originally from Guinea. He's a master of djembe. We have Emily, who's local. She's from Forbidden Dance in Cumberland. Johnson is her last name, so I didn't get that on there. And then we were thinking about inviting Kevin Huawei, but he's quite far away. So we're currently looking for a Plains drum group to come and perform and dance in the event, as well as Jackie Esombe from living currently in Vancouver, but originally from Cameroon. Our budget in a quick breakdown is on the board here. So of course, the highest costs are going to be the artist fees and travel. Travel are one of the higher costs. We also are going to be partnering with local businesses for accommodation, food. We have some administrative costs, of course. We're going to be partnering with Island Soul Films, a local videographer, and hiring a local photographer as well to cover the event. Another part of our intercultural aspect of the event, I would like to propose as a symposium, whereby we have the masters of these cultural these different cultural mechanisms like drum and dance sitting at a table and discussing the importance of culture in our society and their experiences in how culture heals and transforms and transcends. Thank you very much. Was that under 7 minutes?
Great job, Alicia. Thanks for your presentation. Director Grieve, you have some questions for Alicia? We'll just get you to stay at the podium there. Thanks.
You just touched a nerve there when you talked about the powwow dancing, and Doris Wiseline. You probably know Doris. Everybody knows Doris. Anyway, Doris has been. I've worked with Doris for many years on celebrations, July 1st, night before, and also that they had a powwow at Sims Park one year as part of the July 1st celebrations. And there's a young fellow. I know him as Little Johnny, but he's a powwow dancer, full regalia, does all that stuff. We tried to get a hold of him this year, and apparently he's homeless. He's in the valley, but I don't know if Doris has a contact. She got a call out of the blue from him. So there's, I'm sure if you, like I say, I don't know. He goes by Little Johnny, but he does the grass dancing and the whole bit, and he might be a good addition. Certainly, if there was any coin in it for him, it would probably help him out immensely. So, just a thought. Thank you.
There you go.
It's going. Okay, sorry. It's funny, I'm a little bit nervous doing this, but I can get up in front of hundreds of thousands of people and dance around and drum and sing. Of course, definitely. And this is why we're asking for the funding, because artists, they are healers, and it's necessary for those cultures to be continued. And that's part of why we want to create this intercultural exchange as well. I think it's really interesting that capoeira has become, it's a Brazilian traditional martial art, but it's also become this world-renowned sharing of art too that's been quite successful. I mean, I'm just this white girl who my master gave me permission and gave me the blessing to teach, and I'm going to Brazil actually tomorrow morning. I'm leaving for Brazil for 3 weeks to study and train more. But yeah, it's very important for us to support art and culture, especially Indigenous cultures. I really do believe they have the ability to heal our communities, and our communities are broken right now. I also have a good friend that I went to high school with in Mount Currie, and I've been back in touch with him recently. He's from Mount Currie, Lillibot Nation, and he says that his culture saved his life. And I believe it. I totally believe it. So I have been an advocate for culture probably my whole life. And this is the first time I've ever actually had the opportunity to present for grant money. Thanks to Melinda and her knowledge and her experience.
Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. It's really appreciated. It's great to see the joy and the smiles in all the pictures of people who do this art. And I didn't know, I knew it existed, but I didn't know it was so vibrant in the Comox Valley. And when you say our communities are broken, I think this is one example that shows that no, we're not broken. There's a lot of things that are working well in our communities. Before today, when I read the report, that was going to be my question about Comox First Nation involvement, and you answered that very well around Melinda being involved and all the people that might participate. So I'll have a question for staff in a second here, but just in terms, so yes, I'm supportive of a contribution, but in terms of scale, just so you know, like usually contribution to arts events and things like that, like at local government, we go for 1,000, a couple thousand, something like that. So
Yeah.
this is a very big ask. So before I pass it to staff, can I ask you if you've, because I work in the arts sector a bit, and often the province and the federal government are really good funders. So is there any lines that you have into the province or the feds to support this event?
So we actually, because capoeira is also a sport, we do have a capoeira, Canadian Capoeira Federation started, but it's not quite resolved yet because it takes time and it takes high membership. So that would be one avenue. And yes, we are looking for other avenues of funding, most definitely. We haven't been successful in the past, but my expertise is not in funding. Unfortunately, it's in the teaching and the facilitating. So it's been really great to have Melinda Knox with us. Her grandson is also one of my students. So I'm hoping that through her knowledge, we might be able to access more funding. I'm not sure if we would be eligible for the funds at this point because the event is in March of next year. So we are also looking for sponsorships. We have some local sponsorships. We've raised about $2,000 so far in private sector sponsorships as well. So.
Great, thanks. So in terms of thinking about how we might move forward, obviously we also have the arts and culture funding that could be applied to this, and regional recreation as well. I think Capoeira, as you so aptly did show bridges both sports and art.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it was the intention of staff to actually bring that to our brother regional table as well as an option for funding. And second is if staff was hoping that we would make a decision today, or if whether we should just defer a month on this and explore some of those other funding avenues.
Staff at this stage, given that it's a March event, was hoping that you'd make a decision on this today as the grant and aid services. This was the last time we hope to bring them back. We did review the arts and culture grant and decided that the funding was best to be asked for from this grant service, given they're both fully electoral areas funded. It made sense, given the remaining funds and the amount of the ask, to just put it to one service, which is this one. As far as recreation grant goes, again, it'd have to go to the rec commission and be approved. And I can't recall, I feel like the majority of that was expended, but there may be some extra monies in there, Kevin. Can't recall our conversation. It was a month or so ago back. So I'll ask Kevin to fill you in on that one.
Through the chair to the director. So yeah, I was just taking a look at that. So arts and culture looks like it is fully allocated for 2023. So there are no longer any funds left in that. We do have some items continuing to be carried forward in rec grant. So we would certainly have to take a look at that. And as Doug alluded to, if that was the desire of this committee, then we would have to refer that to the rec commission.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I understand the timing of this, and I think, yeah, that would have been great for arts and culture, but if there's zero left, there's zero left. I'll pass it back to the other directors and think some more.
Director Green.
Well, through the staff, I would think that being that we're putting a lot of fees and charges up in the new year, that some of our grants are going to have to go up in tandem. You know, we're like say the farmers market and stuff like that, because we're putting up the cost of this and that. So we're going to have some kind of discussion later in the budget cycle anyway. Yeah, if like I always say, if you're hoping to get the big grants, and I think Director Arbor made this point, you're knocking on the wrong door. But much like we supported the Ukrainian Society a couple of months ago, I'd be willing to put in about $5,000 from various C's, rural community grants. If any of the other, I know that I've got a little more in reserve than some of the other electoral areas, but I'm just wondering if that would be something that would be feasible and not leave us with too exposed without much reserves. But as you know, this is replenished. Now the replenishment doesn't really come till August, does it?
March 31st is when you adopt your budget. At that point, that's kind of the replenishment. Our payments usually don't go out till after August unless
we get our
otherwise
tax
asked for
receipts.
by the society.
Yeah.
With your contribution of $5,000, I would leave, and the former contributions this morning, I would leave you at $20,000, 109 left in your area C for the remainder of 2023.
So
Give you some seed money.
just trying to get clarification there, Edmund. So are you proposing the 20,000 plus an additional 5,000 from area C for the foundation? Or are you looking at that 5,000 being contributed to that 20,000?
Well, I didn't say 20,000.
No, it's 5,000 from area C.
Yeah, from area C. Whether or not the other
Towards the
areas
Brazilian Foundation.
can afford to stump up whatever they can, if that be their pleasure. But I'm willing to put in 5,000.
Okay, so like I said, I'm just trying to understand. So I thought the request from the Brazilian Cultural Foundation was for 20,000.
The request is 80,000 from the Brazilian Cultural Foundation.
80,000.
The staff recommendation based on your remaining funds in the service is up to 20,000, but again, it's at the director's discretion. This is a discretionary grant that we always allow for.
Okay. So, Director, so I was just going to say, we're still on receipt of the report, right? So before we move into recommendations or putting forward motions, I just wanted to see if we should, if there's no other questions or comments, then maybe we should vote on receipt of the report first and foremost. So all in favor of vote on receipt? Carried. And we can excuse the applicant now. Thanks, Alicia. And then we now have recommendations, and there's a few different grants involved in the recommendation here. So are we voting in favor of all of them together, or are we voting in favor of each and every one of the grants there, I guess is the question.
So I'll just offer a little guidance, Chair. So what we typically do is in Appendix A, we only use for the committee to confirm this allocation of funds. So up to this date, what I've understand has been confirmed is 16,000 from Area C for the Oyster River Enhancement Society was put on the table earlier in discussions. 5,000 from the Hornby, Electoral Area Hornby Island funds was put on the table for earlier discussions, leaving Hornby with a remainder of 7,061. And then 16,000 for the Bread of Life, also from Area C, was put on the table by Director Grief, which would, for those first three, would be all the funding required and wouldn't necessarily look to augment from other rural community grant services unless the directors decided to do so. And then lastly, the Brazilian Cultural Foundation, what is on the table for consideration right now is 5,000 from Area C, and discussion ongoing.
And sorry, how much do we have in the Area B coffers?
17,839 remaining.
Thank you. Right, if Edwin's in favor of directing 5,000, then Area B, you know, we could look at maybe putting forward 10,000. Right, Trevor?
Yeah, well, thanks, Chair. It's great to see the enthusiasm of my colleagues. So just for the, you know, the record and my rationale, yes, the funds can be, of course, expended, but the funds don't disappear at March 31st. A lot of what I look at is carryovers to future years. The directors at the table here know that I'm very area A focused on my grant and aid in regards to Hornby, Denman, and the three communities. I tend to exclusively fund organizations there, with some exceptions. But I really like the aspect of the cultural and change involving Comox First Nation. Before Director Hardy spoke about his contribution, I was going to say, you know, I'd be happy to look, and I think my residents would support that, especially the cultural exchange with our Indigenous nation here and a number of other cultures. So, but my amounts were a little bit smaller. I was looking at maybe 500 from each Hornby and Denman, and maybe 2,000 from the other three communities for the Bainstown portion. And I think I'd be quite happy to defend that to my residents as an appropriate contribution. So it almost takes you to 20,000, not quite, but yeah, I'll pass it back to the chair. Thanks.
Sorry, for confirmation, was that 2,000 from Area A or 1,000?
2,000 for Bainstown, and then 500 each from 500 from Hornby and 500 from Denman.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, almost.
Area C, Bread Life, 16,000.
Split between B and C.
So 11,500, I think, from Area C, and 6,500 from, sorry, 11,500 from Area B and 6,500 from Area C.
I think actually, Lisa, I think it's actually 6,000 from Area C, allowed 11,000 from Area B. And then the remainder, and that will total 20,000.
All right, voting on recommendations in regards to the rural grant funds. All in favor?
It's as proposed, I think, yeah.
That's fine. Have a second? All in favor? Carry. Have a nice trip, Alicia, to Brazil. All right. Mips. Thank you. Second. All in favor? Carry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Chris LaRose, Senior Manager of Water and Wastewater Services, will be introducing the staff report. Chris, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, through the chair. Just bear with us. We have a presentation to help support this. Thank you, Lisa. one moment. Okay, great. Well, thanks for your time this morning. So we had committed to reporting back. We have a slightly different format than I think was expected. We had indicated earlier this year that we would be reporting back with the kind of the final recommendation for the path forward for the Graham Lake service area. And in fact, we're proposing a two-phase approach here. We feel we've done enough due diligence to recommend proceeding with treatment plant implementation for the service, but not quite enough due diligence yet to determine the precise treatment technology. So as you'll see as we walk you through this report, Kaylee and I will be explaining or summarizing the analysis this summer and what we propose moving forward. So before I pass you over to Kaylee, just thought just get into a bit of a recent history just to set the context for the presentation today. So late last year, before the conversion was complete, we undertook a pro forma, which is like a kind of a financial snapshot of best available knowledge at that point of the kind of approximate costs facing the service for delivery of the project and some of the other big known costs for the service. Then the service was converted or created on January 1st of this year. Seems like a lot longer than that. And then from January to June, we were undertaking our preliminary analysis and received a lot of concerns and feedback from residents about what they knew about the process to date, largely driven by the very high costs that were kind of predicted by that pro forma. In early January, just after conversion, we provided a report to the committee. And then again in April, we had a much better idea of what we needed to understand better before bringing forward these recommendations. And then we had a community meeting in early June where we presented all of the available information and received a lot of feedback from the community, which helped to steer the work that we've done since. So that's the June to October kind of and still ongoing, that analysis and due diligence to help support this path forward. And that brings us to today. So Kaylee will walk through, so in that meeting, in that report in April, we identified 6 or 7 key areas of analysis. So Kaylee's just going to provide a quick summary of each of those, or kind of our outcomes and how they, and then I'll kind of circle back at the end and kind of pull it together. Over to you, Kaylee.
Thanks, Chris, and through the chair. Yes, we did a lot of the work this year, so I'll just try to keep a succinct summary of some of the main highlights that we did. So we, one of the things we wanted to come back with just a long-term water availability and to confirm that Graham Lake can supply for the foreseeable future. We undertook a watershed hydrology study, and while we expect summer drawdown of the lake to increase, even if the full water licenses are utilized, it shows that Graham Lake should recharge in typical years. And so the next step, if we think to collect a little bit more data on this, would be to install a level sensor on the lake. There's the first step. And another kind of key piece of information is that even a conservative estimate of the water volume in Graham Lake shows that we have multiple years of water storage above the current intake elevation, which can be used to buffer against multiple drought years. So there has been some recent changes to the Water Sustainability Act on dam safety regulation. And it's increased obligations of dam owners and operators. And we had the opportunity, we were undertaking a dam assessment of Langley Lake Dam, and it made a lot of sense to kind of combine both assessments at the same time to get some cost savings. So we had someone come out to site, and we did confirm that there has been some scouring noted underneath the concrete spillway. And it's recommended to remediate that spillway within the next few years. And our next steps will be discussing with the regulator on how we can implement those recommendations. So there has been, so on the water main condition assessment, the main driver for some of these high increase in costs was that the estimated remaining service life of that water main was only 8 years. And so there was some uncertainty on when replacement will occur. Although we can't really do can't really do a more intensive water main assessment at the moment, we did a high level one. So the analysis completed a number of looked at a couple of different aspects of, actually you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we excavated the water main in 4 locations, 2 in the supply line and 2 in the distribution system. We actually determined that the supply line was ductile iron in the 2 areas we inspected, not asbestos cement as previously thought. All the exterior, the condition of the water main in these 4 areas looked like it was in good condition. We also reviewed the available service records from GLID's available records, and almost all of those connections were done on the service connections, not on the water main itself. These are all good indicators. So the exterior of the mains are in good condition, but we have not been able to review the interior of the condition. And unfortunately, so one of the results was that the water does have a high corrosion potential for asbestos cement. However, we're kind of expecting that the water mains can at least be expected to last 10 years longer than originally anticipated. And this has a big impact on those future rates. And so we've modeled 2041, 2042 as for condition of the water main in the financial assessment. Next. So for on the water treatment project, given the large potential impact on residents, we're still evaluating the 2 front running treatment technologies, that is biosand filtration and followed by nanofiltration and dissolved air flotation. DAF looks to be a little bit more expensive up front, but it's lower complexity, it's more demonstrated technology. We're struggling a bit to find reference facilities for biosand filtration and plus nanofiltration. And we're hoping to be able to speak with operators of systems like that. And there are some efficiencies with because of staff's familiarity with DAF. We're using in Union Bay and our wastewater treatment plant. So our next step will be to work with ops and engineering consultant to finalize the assessment of this treatment technology. Yeah. So there are 3 key messages. So we want to we have significantly improved the cost estimate based off of what we've previously been showing. It's based on the most expensive technology, that is DAF. We've upgraded it in the financial model. We based our assessment on the WSP's estimated cost, but we included some additional allowances on the financial model to be conservative. We're currently anticipating midpoint of construction to be late 2026, and we're using a 5% annual inflation factor. This 30% contingency is also being used, which is higher than the previously messaged 20%. And we'll continue to reevaluate these costs once the treatment technology is assessed. So all of these, many of these mentioned projects were used as key inputs into the financial analysis we completed with Universe Water Worth tool. Consistent with our rate, a comprehensive rate review for the other services, we have developed kind of a consistent approach. We've kind of looked at all of these additional, the current system, the all significant expected costs, and used kind of the same methodology as the rate review. So I guess the 2 big components. So this is something similar you might be familiar with from the rate review. The delay of the construction of the water treatment plant from 24 to 25 to 26, 27, along with the water main construction from 2031 to 2041, allows for a much more gradual rate increase than previously estimated. Unlike our other larger services, which spread out construction over larger periods of time, it makes more sense to complete major section of the water main replacement at one time. So we would look at completing the supply line at one time versus breaking it up into sections. Kind of some notes on the specific capital projects. So you'll see the first large spike would be construction over 27. The blue is our current $1.4 million grant, and we would be we're currently anticipating to borrow the remainder. That allows us to kind of ramp into the rate increases a bit more gradually rather than drastically. So we are recommending a 15-year gradual increase to parcel taxes. It's the this is our recommendation to mitigate impacts to service members. Even so, the first 5-year rate increase in all scenarios is needed to be higher in order to maintain a positive reserve balance, as the proposed debt servicing costs for the water treatment plant erode the current reserves. In the 10 to 15-year rate increase scenarios, the annual rate increase slows down around 2030, slowly bringing our reserves back to a point where we can pay for replacement of our other assets. Only the 2024 user rate and parcel tax would be contemplated for adoption at the next meeting or future. So we did look at, based off of some of the responses that we received from residents, we did look into some alternatives, especially considering the dramatic increase in costs. We reached out to Island Health, and we talked about a couple of different options to this service. Point of use, it would be very difficult. Would be installing CVRD owned and maintained treatment systems on each property, and would carry a high capital cost for that. And it's also a significant departure from the approved grant scope. Weekly water samples collected on each property would be problematic and costly. Replacement of the water main would still be necessary. So it's not really recommended approach for the service. And then we also looked at the possibility of dissolution if we had exceeded the affordability limit for most residents. It does appear to be legally plausible. However, no system of this size has been known to Island Health to have folded. Consent from all participants would be required in order to prevent the creation of multiple smaller systems. We've received a number of responses from community members against this option, so it doesn't seem to be viable. And unless otherwise directed otherwise, and no further analysis of water treatment plant alternatives are currently planned. So on water meters, we looked at both. So we're still looking at both prospective technologies for the water treatment plant, but reducing the size of the trains, the number of trains doesn't really seem to yield significant savings. Water conservation plan will still be created as a condition of the grant, and that's definitely going to be a key part of water meter installation will be probably a key part of that. It's the goal. It just doesn't seem, or it's not in the immediate future, but it's definitely the goal for the long term for the service. So the existing $1.4 million grant, it did expire in March 31st of 2026, and we have achieved a 2-year extension of the grant.
Thanks, Keely. Yeah, just to summarize, so some of our key takeaways from the work so far this year. The first one is that, and as reflected in the recommendations, that we feel the work does support the recommendation to proceed with WTP implementation, albeit not with the precise technology selected. But as Keely has highlighted, we have narrowed it down to 2, the BSF plus NF that was selected through Graham Lake's study with WSP, or DAF. And as Kaylee's mentioned, they are similar in cost, with DAF being a little bit higher. So we've used that as the model for the financial modeling and for the proposed rate increases for 2024, the first of the 5-year plan. So we feel as a conservative approach would allow us to get started on increasing the revenue to where it needs to be while we finish the rest of this due diligence. Secondly, we have managed to bring down the immediate financial impact to the residents of this service area by, as Kaylee's mentioned, by pushing out the major capital, giving us a little bit more time to ramp up rates. Further due diligence is being completed to confirm the treatment plant technology. And we would be, if supported today, we'd be bringing back those recommendations for water treatment plant technology, fire protection, so a path forward for fire protection, and how we're going to fund all of this by mid-2024. And if supported today, our approach would be to provide a written update to residents after this meeting, and then do another in-person information session immediately after the subsequent meeting where we bring forth the recommendations for the treatment plant technology. And finally, just summarizing what we've already presented here. Yeah, we're estimating kind of early to late spring 24 for the recommendations regarding treatment plant technology, fire protection, public information session, hopefully before everybody breaks for summer in June. And we are anticipating, as Kaylee mentioned or showed you on the graph of our financial model there, we are expecting significant borrowing being required for this project, which would be authorized by some form of electoral assent process to be defined in that report coming back in early to mid 2024. But with the timing of that is expected towards the end of next year, if everything goes according to plan here. That's it from us, but we're happy to answer any questions or support the discussion.
Director Arbor. Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks to staff. Obviously, really good report with some good news in there. We've gone from the 4,400 to 2,900. And it's interesting to hear your consideration of the DAF plant, and which I know Union Bay settled on in the end, but I guess we'll see how that goes. And that's not my expertise in terms of selection of the actual technology that will work best, but it's good to see that we've really turned every rock in terms of looking at the future of this project. And I think from my perspective, we're back in play. And I think today, I have 4 recommendations that I would add. Now, I'm not sure if I'll make them today. I'll talk about them now, and then staff can consider if they want me to write a letter to the committee on those 4. But I will say that for recommendation 1, nobody will ever get me to ever agree to a recommendation that says the only viable path. I'm an options guy. I'm fine with changing the recommendation as the preferred path forward for Graham Lake. There's always other paths out there, and until you've built a project and expended the amounts, I realize how much goes into it. But the only viable path was the only thing in the whole report that I was having difficulty with. What I was going to talk about is, how do we improve on the $2,900 and still bring it even further down? So I have kind of 2, let's call them steps rather than recommendations or motions right now, but a couple of those steps in additions to the one you're presenting today, which I agree with all of them. I would like that we've had a long discussion at the board last week around the Growing Communities Fund. And the board is coming a bit to a head. We're really struggling with making a decision around the allocation of those funds. I think that was very evident at our meeting. The ESC had some ideas that the 3 of us supported, but it seemed like some of the municipal directors did not agree necessarily. So I think it's an opportunity maybe to insert this project in, not for large amounts, but just to talk about being shoulder to shoulder with our residents in the Comox Valley. I was thinking of asking that the ESC recommend a $250,000 contribution from the Growing Communities Fund to the CVRD board for this project. And obviously, I would be quite willing to pitch it to the rest of the board when it comes to time. And if it doesn't fly, it doesn't fly. But I thought I would say that. We are coming on the close of the Community Works Fund to 2024. I anticipate through my work at FCM, and of course, all the staff here knows that it's likely a program that's going to get renewed for another 10 years. I would be interested to see that we consider Community Works allocation to the project in the 2024-2034 period, further to what we've contemplated yet. And a lot of my rationale for that is in the last 10 years, Hornby and Denman have seen about $1 million, which we have expanded across about 20 projects. But a project like this, especially for the public tap, and what will be the completion of the Cross Island Trail on Denman, and we've resolved the fire hall on Denman, I think there would be space to look at a contribution of Community Works in the next grant cycle to this project, especially if we focus on the aspect of the public tap that we'll have for the rest of the community as well. I don't have an amount to that, but I thought we could explore that. The other two were externally based. I propose that we arrange a call with our MLA office to discuss our findings from this report and explore any further funding opportunities. And second, for next summer, in June, that we present a summary of the project at our annual meeting with Islands Trust, which is usually the Hornby and the Denman local trust committees, and that we propose an exploration of zoning density in this area. Denman is having huge issues with affordable housing. This is one of the only places that has service in terms of water, the other being in the downtown. Now, I won't presume to know anything about capacity or zoning appetite at the Islands Trust, but I know they are zoned as R1, all these properties right now. And I know there's a lot of interest in garden suites and secondary suites and the rest of that. I realize there's also sewage constraint, but just to initiate a discussion. And if the trustees themselves are interested in that, then we would pursue. If they're not, then instead. So those were the four things I think to try to, and the rationale behind that is if you bring that on board, then you can actually charge more. We know in the municipalities, when you have a secondary suite, people pay into the system. So if we have the room from the hydrological report for some growth, I don't think the growth is going to come from adding new properties, but it's a bit like the sewage in Royston and Union Bay. If you can incentivize a little bit of density, then that can help with the cost of infrastructure over time. I don't know what staff wants to do with those four thoughts. I'm happy to save them for a report, but for today, I would definitely support the four recommendations with the small change of only viable to preferred path. I'll pass it back to my colleagues.
Yeah, I thank you, Director. Appreciate the thoughtful consideration you've given there and very clear suggestions for further exploration. I think I know that staff is intending to come back in December, I believe, to put forward more of that due diligence around the treatment technology and the funding strategy. Is that that's the December?
So in December, what we'd be looking to do is bring forward the parcel tax bylaw. So the amendments to the user rate and parcel tax bylaw 424 to embed the proposed first year escalation of rates. The reporting back on the treatment technology wouldn't be until middle of next year.
Okay.
So that would be, so yeah, I guess we do have an opportunity over the next couple of weeks to look at opportunities to incorporate additional funding before we bring back those. But alternatively, given that we are facing such a significant increase in revenue required, even after this positive news, you know, we could stick with the proposed 24 increase and then have a little bit more time to digest the questions that you've raised and bring those back in mid 24 when we report out on the other piece, and which already includes the funding strategy. Yeah, Kevin.
Thank you, through Chair to Directors. Yeah, just to follow up on what Chris is saying. So the committee may be aware that at the December board meeting, we are slated to bring back the growing communities funding allocations, because we do require to have those funds at least fully allocated, not spent, but allocated by the end of this year. So if the committee were to put that recommendation forward to consider a contribution to growing community funds to this service, we could certainly look at incorporating that into that report that we bring back in December.
Yeah, thanks. Good feedback from staff. So I would basically postpone, not postpone, but just not force them today. 3 of my thoughts, one being on, no, 2 of my thoughts. I think we should call the MLA. So I'd like to add that one to explore further funding opportunities. I would drop the Island Straws. Obviously, we can dispense with it further in the spring ahead of our meeting with them. And the community works, we can wait as well. We don't know the amounts yet in the contract. But if the committee is willing, I would look to pass the recommendation if the SC is supportive of a 250 contribution from the Growing Communities Fund today, so that we can forward it to the board in time for the December meeting.
Try to agree.
Thanks. I know this is going to be a bitter pill to swallow for the residents, but I do think that it was very productive to have all 3 directors there at the hall when we had that public meeting in June. So it kind of prepares the way for the bad news to come. But, you know, you talk about options, there's very little in the way of options. I am heartened to see that parcel taxes can be deferred. So, you know, the people that really can't afford it can always defer it on their property. That gives a little bit of a pressure relief valve. Yeah, as far as the building communities go, I was as surprised as anyone to see the municipalities trying to carve it up their way. I do think that when we met with the minister, it was quite clear that that wasn't what they intended. So I don't know if they got that message, but it was pretty plain that they were, especially regarding the South Sewer extension, that the ministry was quite live to it and definitely supported using some of those funds for that purpose. So yeah, I do think you've heard me rant and rave about the fact that, you know, what decisions do we get to weigh in on that Courtney makes. But yeah, let's run up a flagpole and see if anybody salutes it. Regardless, it's going to have to move forward. It's fact of life. So you know, I do thank staff for exhausting all. What did Winston Churchill say about, you know, they always make the right decision after they exhausted all of their possibilities.
Great. So we're still on receipt of report. All in favor of receipt of report? Carried. Now we do have some recommendations. Director Arbor?
I'll move 1 with an adjustment that the Electoral Area Services Committee support implementation of water treatment compliant with Ministry of Health requirements as the preferred path forward for the Graham Lake and Denman Island water services.
All in favor? Carried. Recommendation number 1.
I'll move 2 that staff proceed with completing the necessary bylaw updates for the Denman Island Graham Lake Water Local Service Areas to create a parcel tax and update the water user rates for 2024 as per option 3 detailed within Appendix A of the staff report dated November 3rd, 2023.
All in favor? Carried.
I'll move 3 that staff be directed to complete further diligence and report back with recommended treatment technology and funding strategy.
All in favor? Carried.
Move 4 that staff be directed to send a letter to Graham Lake and Denman Island water system users to provide an update on the work completed to date prior to another public open house to occur after the water treatment plant project and Electoral sent recommendation is finalized. Should it read are finalized? Anyways, either way. Yeah.
Director Pete?
I'll second it so we put it on the table. Just you know, electoral assent. What if it doesn't receive electoral assent? Then what? We say, you know, it's one of those situations where, you know, the province really should step up, but you know, what's going to happen if they don't? We can't maintain the status quo, and then the province will come down with regulations, infractions.
Yeah, we're, as I think, as you intonated, we're no stranger to that very situation, right? We on a bigger scale here for the Comox Valley water system, we were very much in that situation. So I think in our approach here is to make sure we've done all of our due diligence, made sure that the community has all of the information, and trust that process will. If not, I think we would be working closely with Island Health to determine the next steps. Yeah.
Director Harbour?
Yeah, thanks. I thank Darren to agree for bringing that forward. So it's the catch-22 that you can't dissolve the service if only one resident is opposed to dissolving it. From what I hear, I'll trust staff's advice on that. And on the other hand, if you do an electoral assent process and it fails, then you're back to square one. Which is why, you know, I think dating back a number of months ago, it's obvious that staff is doing absolutely everything they can to bring forward the most economical project as possible that meets the requirements and the long-term asset management needs of the system. I'm feeling like we're well on our way on delivering the best possible course for that. And then with the additional recommendation I want to put forward, I think we can do even better. So I want to get to a place where I can champion the final proposal 100%, you know, with residents and say, and also be open. If residents have additional ideas on how we can improve it, they can bring that forward now that they have this report, and that might impact the electoral assent or our approach. So I think taking that extra year is already proving to be well worth it. I think at 4,400 a year ago, there's no way we would have passed electoral assent on that. So yeah, that's the risk of democracy, but that's also the beauty and the value of democracy is, you know, we do our work transparently and best we can, and then we'll leave it in the homeowner's hands at the end when it comes to a vote or assent decision. And just to confirm, unlike a LWMP, I can't do this one through a director's assent, right? I can't. So you can do a referendum, an AEP process. And the other one is just director's assent, but it doesn't apply to a project like this, just to clarify for residents, because the question might come up.
Yeah, so petition would be the other.
Petition is the other one.
So I think that's what we've talked about most seriously in this application. Would be
that's right.
Petition process, given the very relatively small number of homes and
the cost, bring the cost down and just do the petition. Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
But we will include an assessment of those options in our next report.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up, Dr. Grieve.
So going back to recommendation number 4 then. We all in favor? Carry. Director Harbour, you have.
Turn my mic off. Thanks, Chair. I have 2 further ones. That one simple, that we arrange a call with our MLA office to discuss findings of this report and explore any further funding opportunities at the province.
And a second?
Yeah, you seconded. I made the motion.
All in favor? Carry.
And lastly, I'll test it out with my 2 colleagues here that, where is it? There it is. That the ESC recommend a 250,000 contribution from the Growing Communities Fund to the CVRD board.
Second. Director Green?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. That brings into play our fabulous PR department. Are we going to just spring this on them tomorrow, or when is this coming forward at the end of the month, isn't it?
It'll, the Growing Communities Fund report will be in September. I'm sorry, December. So it won't be tomorrow. It'll be in
It'll be
December 5th or December 12th.
So it'll be do or die at that point.
The board needs to allocate the full funding from the Growing Communities
That'll
Fund
put the gun to the head
by the end of the year.
Yes, I know. So that'll be it. Crunch time. Thank you.
Director Harbour, another comment?
Yeah, thanks. I thought about going for $1 million, which is pretty sure we wouldn't get it. So I came up, I think, with an amount that's reasonable and in comparison to the total sum of what we're getting to growing communities. It's still an arbitrary amount, but I think to test the waters and knowing the discussions with our municipal colleagues, I'm hoping that we'll find some support. Hopefully the support we need to get this. Thanks.
Victory.
And just for reference, Courtney got 7.6 million. And when you add up all the electoral areas, we're only what, a couple of thousands less populated in the city of Courtney. So, you know, again, disparities, unfairness, we're the country cousins of the children of the province. Thank you.
Okay. So just to call a question in regards to the community funds, growing community funds, all in favor? Carried. If we could, I'd like to wrap things up by 12:30 today. So yeah, quick break and then we still have an in-camera. Thank you, Edwin. So moving into item number 8 on the agenda, the Community Works Fund Status Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report is it's a regular reporting to the board about the status of the Community Works Fund. Notably different in this report is a request to decommit a number of Community Works Fund commitments because those projects aren't requiring the funding as was originally noted for a variety of reasons. And I know that Kevin's here and can provide any sort of context if the directors have any questions about any of those particular projects or the staff report itself.
Director,
Yeah, thanks. Just briefly. By the way, I appreciated the extra information found in the reports this time. Probably tied to the fact that we're at the conclusion of the 10 years. A couple of pages were weird though, because it's just numbers kind of in a column. But I had a question about why. So at the very bottom on page 13 in area A for Denman and Hornby, which I've strived for balance and pretty close now that I'm looking at the numbers, but there's a couple of projects that were not listed. One was the Hornby Allen Art Center is not listed there, and I wonder if there was a reason why it wasn't included in that table.
Yeah, through the chair to directors. Yeah, first of all, I just want to apologize for some of the formatting errors that occurred on some of those appendices. They were meant to be a little kind of tighter, but I can certainly provide an update on the Hornby Island Art Center. So now that they've well past broken ground and actually are nearing the project completion, we have just dispersed those funds as of last week. So if those have been remiss to, so I do see it on, I'm not sure what page this would be. We have identified that funding in Appendix B as coming out. I will have to double check.
Yeah, I see it on page 9.
Yeah. So I will have to just make sure to confirm. And again, it's probably just the formatting to make sure that was also included as a contribution from.
Thanks to staff, because the appendices, I assume, was the final document around the 10-year CWF spending, but obviously now I learned there'll be a couple more adjustments.
Yeah.
So I guess, will that be presented again in March or something like that with the final tally?
Yeah, we can certainly tidy this up and certainly bring it back. We are tentatively slated to bring you back a report in December, hoping that we will have some further updates with respect to the pending new contract of Community Works Funds. We have heard very little since the summer when we first engaged with UBCM, but I'll certainly be reaching out to them over the next few weeks. We're also hoping to potentially give you a sense of what asks may have already been layered within the pending financial planning process.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Oh, I'll wait till Director Greaves got his mouth full of food before I ask him if he wants to speak.
No, I was just going to ask a question about the electric car charging stations in Area C.
So through the chair to directors, yeah, I'm not 100% clear as to where the locations all landed, but certainly this was something that was cost shared between the 3 electoral areas for the various EV charging stations that were populated throughout the region.
No, well, it's a good point because you might be right. This is a project of 4 years ago when we applied with 2 other regional districts, I believe. Alana might have the information. And we put some charging stations at the sports center, at the aquatic center, but I thought we were going to put one up in your area so anyways, maybe Alana has the information.
Alana.
you very much, Mr. Chair. Through to the directors. Yes, this project is committed. We partnered with 9 other regional districts, or sorry, we were one of 9 regional districts that participated. And Marcus just confirmed we have one at Hardy Bay, pardon me, Hardy Road at Seal Bay, and Sports Center, Aquatic Center, but nothing else in the parks. No.
Okay, so that, thanks for that. I guess, obviously being a huge supporter of having proper infrastructure, I wrongly assumed that there was one that had gone around Black Creek. If there hasn't been one, let's find a way to get something up there, even like with BC Hydro or something. That would definitely be a gap in the network, in my opinion.
Otherwise, we'll bring gas stations back. Seriously though, I guess the conundrum there is the fact that, first of all, it has to be in a location where it's actually going to be useful, which I would think Highway 19 would be it. 19A, like the fire hall in Oyster River, or maybe our new recycling depot, if we ever get that off the ground up there. So someplace where it can actually be useful, where you can just pull off and you know, it won't be a super fast one, but, and it has to be on public property, correct? So
Okay, I'll speak first, then you can update, but if that's okay with the chair, sorry, going through the chair.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I'm not sure if it's through the grant or not, but we do have charging stations at Merville Hall, and I'm pretty sure Fire Hall. I'm pretty sure we also have one at the Black Creek Oyster River Fire Hall.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. Yeah, fire halls are good. The one in Cumberland barely gets any use because, I mean, the firefighters, they show up with a charged car. Places that are great, community halls are great because quite often you got people traveling from other locations, say they attend an event or a concert, and they have a couple of hours on site. It's a low level charging. I know the ones on Hornby and Denman that we've put on are used all the time. So just a suggestion for future consideration, but great to know there's some infrastructure in there, you see. Oh, what about Mount Washington?
Through Chair Hardy to the directors, we have had conversation with Mount Washington, and they were exploring it at one point, but decided that it wasn't the right time for them. So not to say that that conversation can die. I think they'd be looking for something probably in the fast charger range versus the level 2.
Great, so we're still on receipt of the report. All in favor of the report? Carried.
The recommendation.
Thank you. So are we doing each of these individually or just all in one shot? Okay. So receipt of the recommendations. All in favor? And then vote on the recommendation. All in favor? Oh, sorry, carried. Very good. Just double. Thank you. Going into camera. The committee adjourned to an in-camera session pursuant to the following subsection of section 90 of the community charter. 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If the committee board considers that disclosure might reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality. Sorry, where?